Henrik Ibsen's Ghosts, Gengangere, 1881, is a daring and controversial play that interrogates the foundations of social respectability, family, religion, and morality. Written in the wake of A Doll's House, Ghosts extends Ibsen's critique of 19th-century bourgeois values, particularly the oppressive norms surrounding gender, marriage, inheritance, and duty. When first published and performed, the play scandalized audiences with its unflinching treatment of topics such as venereal disease, incest, euthanasia, and moral hypocrisy. The title, Ghosts, refers not to supernatural apparitions but to the metaphorical ghosts of the past, social conventions, inherited sins, and repressed truths that continue to haunt the present. Through the unraveling of a seemingly upright Norwegian household, Ibsen exposes the psychological and societal costs of silence, denial, and blind adherence to outdated ideals. Setting: the play is set in the home of Mrs. Helen Alving, a widow preparing to dedicate an orphanage in memory of her late husband, Captain Alving, a man once revered in their community. The entire play takes place over one day and night in the Alving estate, amid relentless rain that underscores the emotional and moral atmosphere. Act 1. The play opens with Pastor Manders, a local clergyman and family friend, visiting Mrs. Alving to discuss the final details for the orphanage's dedication. Their conversation gradually reveals tensions. Mrs. Alving is uneasy about the facade surrounding her husband's memory. She had once tried to leave her abusive marriage and had sought refuge with Manders, who persuaded her to return to uphold her marital duties. We learn that Mrs. Alving's only son, Oswald, a young artist, has returned from Paris. Their housemaid, Regina Engstrand, is being summoned by her father, Jacob Engstrand, a coarse and manipulative carpenter who wants her to help him run a seaman's home, a thinly veiled brothel. Hints of moral decay and hypocrisy surface early. Pastor Manders insists on propriety and traditional values, while Mrs. Alving's frankness suggests a deep disillusionment with those very ideals. She begins to question whether it's wise to maintain the illusion of her husband as a paragon of virtue. Act 2. Mrs. Alving begins to reveal the truth to Pastor Manders. Her husband was a debauched libertine, who was unfaithful throughout their marriage and even attempted to seduce the servants. She only stayed with him because Manders advised her to do so, and because society demanded it. In a tragic irony, she tells Manders that Regina is not actually Engstrand's daughter, but Captain Alving's, born of his affair with a maid, Johanna. Mrs. Alving kept this secret to protect Regina's future. Thus, Regina and Oswald, unknown to themselves, are half-siblings. Oswald begins to show signs of distress. He tells his mother that he is suffering from a degenerative disease. The joy of life is gone, which doctors in Paris traced to the sins of the father. Oswald's affliction is later revealed to be congenital syphilis, inherited from Captain Alving. Act 3. Disaster unfolds. Pastor Manders accidentally causes a fire at the orphanage by mishandling an oil lamp. He is distraught, fearing scandal and public shame, but Jacob Engstrand offers to take the blame in exchange for funding for his establishment. Manders, ever concerned with appearances, agrees. Meanwhile, Oswald begs his mother to help him die if his mental decline becomes too severe. He has already procured morphine tablets for this purpose. Mrs. Alving is horrified but does not refuse him outright. As Regina learns her true parentage, she is horrified and refuses to stay with Oswald or the Alvings. She leaves, determined to seek a better life. The play ends with Oswald suffering a severe mental collapse. He regresses to a childlike state and repeatedly pleads for the sun to rise. Mrs. Alving is left in anguished indecision, unsure whether to honor her son's request to end his life. Character analysis. Mrs. Helen Alving. Mrs. Alving is the emotional and moral center of the play. Initially appearing as a dutiful widow, she gradually reveals herself as a disillusioned truth-seeker, willing to confront the lies that have shaped her life. Her past obedience to Pastor Manders and societal norms led to her own suffering and the destruction of her son. She is a proto-feminist figure, questioning religious dogma, the sanctity of marriage, and the morality of keeping appearances. Her decision to build an orphanage, not to honor her husband but to consume his fortune and legacy, is a symbolic attempt to exorcise the ghosts of the past. Yet Mrs. Alving is ultimately tragically constrained. She cannot fully escape the social codes she despises. Her final moment, paralyzed by the decision to euthanize her son or let him live in agony, captures the devastating consequences of moral ambiguity and inherited guilt. Oswald Alving. Oswald represents the modern, liberal individual, influenced by bohemian Parisian ideals and artistic freedom. However, his inherited illness shows that the past cannot be escaped, no matter how progressive one's outlook. His illness, symbolic and literal, embodies the consequences of sins buried under respectability. Oswald is both victim and prophet, exposing the hypocrisies of the past and demanding a more honest, if painful, reckoning. His plea for euthanasia introduces profound ethical questions. Is mercy killing justified? Is it moral to let someone live a degraded life? These questions remain unresolved, underscoring the play's refusal to offer easy answers. Pastor Manders. Manders is a figure of moral and religious authority, yet he is naive, rigid, and deeply concerned with public opinion. His advice to Mrs. Alving, based on conventional morality, caused long-term harm. He is blind to the real suffering around him, preferring to maintain appearances rather than seek truth. His willingness to let Engstrand take the blame for the fire in order to protect his own reputation reveals his moral cowardice. Ibsen uses Manders to critique the Church's complicity in maintaining social hypocrisy and patriarchal oppression. Jacob Engstrand. Engstrand is a cunning opportunist who manipulates others under the guise of piety and charity. His plan to open a seaman's home is a transparent front for a brothel, yet he gains Manders' support by appealing to religious charity. Engstrand symbolizes the underbelly of society's respectability, how vice and exploitation are tolerated as long as they wear a mask of virtue. Regina Engstrand. Regina is ambitious and proud, seeking a better life beyond servitude. Her desire to be with Oswald is shattered by the revelation of their shared paternity. She chooses to leave rather than remain in a morally corrupt household. Regina represents the desire for autonomy and escape, but also the vulnerability of women trapped by class and lineage. Her fate remains uncertain, another casualty of a world built on secrecy and deception. Themes and analysis. 1. The tyranny of the past. The ghosts of the title are not literal but symbolic. They are unspoken truths, inherited sins, and societal expectations that haunt every character. Ibsen shows that the past cannot be buried. Attempts to conceal it only produce greater suffering. Oswald's disease is a biological manifestation of this theme. The sins of the father are visited upon the son. The play critiques a society that demands silence and conformity, punishing those who deviate from its norms. 2. Hypocrisy and social respectability. Ibsen eviscerates the 19th-century obsession with appearances. The Alving household is a monument to hypocritical piety, a shrine to a man who was abusive and immoral. The orphanage itself, meant to erase Captain Alving's legacy, is a hollow gesture, eventually destroyed. Pastor Manders embodies the institutional voice that insists on moral uprightness, yet he ignores suffering and enables deceit. His priorities, honor, public reputation, propriety, lead to moral and human failure. 3. Gender, marriage, and patriarchy. Mrs. Alving's story is a critique of marriage as an institution of female subjugation. She was forced to stay with an abusive husband to preserve social status and protect her child. Her return to him, at Manders' urging, symbolizes how women were denied agency in the name of duty. Regina's plight, trapped between low birth and sexual objectification, further illustrates how patriarchal structures confine women's futures. Silko challenges romanticized notions of womanhood, virtue, and family. 4. Illness as inheritance. Oswald's syphilis is not just a medical condition, it is a metaphor for generational trauma. His artistic brilliance is clouded by the degeneration he cannot escape. Ibsen challenges the notion that one can simply start anew, showing that what is repressed in one generation returns with force in the next. The disease also introduces themes of euthanasia and human dignity, decades before these debates entered mainstream discourse. 5. The futility of charity without truth. Mrs. Alving's orphanage is a well-intentioned but ultimately futile effort to erase her husband's legacy. Built on lies, it burns to the ground. Ibsen suggests that social reform without personal honesty is hollow. Similarly, Manders and Engstrand's plan to build a home for sailors is cloaked in philanthropy but rooted in exploitation. The play exposes the ease with which charity can become a mask for corruption. Symbolism. The orphanage, a symbol of hollow memorialization and failed attempts to sanitize the past. Its destruction represents the collapse of false ideals. Rain and darkness. The relentless rain symbolizes emotional and moral decay, while the lack of sunlight mirrors Oswald's desire for light and clarity. The sun. Oswald's plea, "Give me the sun," symbolizes a longing for life, truth, and warmth. A final, tragic appeal for transcendence in a bleak world. Dramatic style and legacy. Ghosts is written in realist style, with naturalistic dialogue, unity of time and place, and focus on psychological depth. It broke with melodrama and classical tragedy to portray everyday domestic life as a site of profound ethical and existential conflict. Its impact was immense. Initially banned or censored, the play came to be recognized as a landmark in modern drama, influencing figures such as George Bernard Shaw, Arthur Miller, and Tennessee Williams. Ibsen's realism exposed the moral rot beneath bourgeois respectability, transforming theater into a tool of social critique. Conclusion. Henrik Ibsen's Ghosts is a scathing indictment of the moral hypocrisy, social conformity, and repression of 19th-century Western society. Through its claustrophobic setting, complex characters, and unrelenting revelations, the play shows how silence and denial breed destruction. Ibsen's critique of inherited sin, gender oppression, and institutional complicity remains eerily relevant today. In Mrs. Alving's anguished final moment, trapped between compassion and despair, we see the human cost of a society that refuses to confront its ghosts. Ghosts does not offer hope or catharsis, but it demands honesty. Its legacy lies in its fearless confrontation with truth and its insistence that only through facing our haunted histories can we begin to change.